Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name.
Former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin, who recently received a letter from the FBI saying, be quiet about this. Kyle, welcome to the show. You're not following orders.
So, Kyle, you had some issues that brought you here as a whistleblower. Joining me now to discuss is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Kyle, thanks for spending some time with us again. Joining me now is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Joining me now is a frequent guest of the show, former FBI special agent whistleblower as well, Kyle Seraphin.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Right, we're lucky to have him with us today. He's Kyle Seraphin, a real whistleblower himself.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Why did you decide to become a whistleblower?
I just made a decision that this is America's information, it's not mine, and I'm not going to let the FBI steamroll me and my family.
Kyle Seraphin, he's a former FBI agent. He's the host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Kyle. Great to have you back with us, sir.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kyle Seraphin.
Let's turn it over to two former FBI special agents turned whistleblowers who are holding the Bureau accountable, Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin.
A brave FBI whistleblower who is a friend of our show, also Dan Bongino's. Kyle Seraphin. He's the host of something that strangely is called The Kyle Seraphin Show. Follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. I'll call you later. We'll talk guns. We'll talk optics.
All right. Any update on your whistleblower situation?
No, I expect to be attacked for the foreseeable future.
Okay. At least you're realistic. Thanks so much, Kyle.
All right. Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, also host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast. Thanks as always, Kyle. Good to talk to you today, sir.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Steve, Kyle, you guys are great Americans, and it's an honor to have you on the program. Have a great weekend.
And follow him, Kyle Seraphin, with a PH on Twitter. God bless you, Kyle.
Well, so Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Kyle Seraphin, thank you.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
This is Project Command. Stand by power transfer. Time is X minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Bam! That's fun. How you guys doing? It's our call-in show. That must mean it's Thursday night. Did a little bit of a throwback intro because I got my buddy Steve Friend jumping on with me, and it's been quite a ride for the last, 2 years or so. At this point, 2 years of being public. Some people that are not, I guess, our friends anymore, but nothing that we intended. I'm going to bring on my man right now. We're going to get a little chatting going. We got the phone line open. Let's see. There's Steve. Hey, Steve. How you doing, buddy?
Present and account for. Here I am.
Here you are. Fantastic. I appreciate that. Is your audio low? Say it again.
Here I am.
It is low. I'm gonna fix that right now. You just stand by.
You just don't
got
need
you,
to
big
shout
guy.
more?
No, I wonder if you had something tuned down a little bit. Let me just fix that there. All right, we're going to have a real Steve Friend with real volume. Folks, if you guys want to join us and chat, this is your opportunity to call and talk to Steve. You probably have seen him if you're out running around at patriotic events, and he'll stand there awkwardly with you and take a phone or a picture with you on the selfie. But also, real conversations a little bit more fun, sometimes over the phone. So the phone lines are open. You guys can get the phone number over here. It's KyleSeraphin.com. KyleSeraphin.com will take you there. It is also pinned in our chat on Rumble if you want to link into it. You got to be a subscriber. And you can also do it if you want to do it on the cheap. You can join us on X. It's my handle over there. It's x.com/KyleSeraphin. Become a subscriber there. It's even less expensive. I think it's like $1.99 or something, or $2 a month. And you can jump in, and I've pinned it there. So that's the story. Steve, how you doing in in the wake of being able to publish your op-ed. You want to talk a little bit about an op-ed that you were being repressed? You were being held back from?
Being suppressed. It was, written shortly after July 13th. I remember that because that was the date that shall not be spoken about anymore, apparently.
Ever.
After we watched Donald Trump almost get his head blown off, and then a couple of female Secret Service protection detail members, maybe not, unable to holster firearms. It got me thinking about something that I had been already percolating in my mind that I wanted to cover, and that was the 30 by 30 initiative. And that's moving 30% of leadership positions in law enforcement into females into those positions by 2030. That's the initiative.
Is it leadership that they're trying to put in? They want female bosses?
That's they originally was supposed to be in the actual employment ranks, but now it's been escalated to leadership. That's what they want. They want managers. They want drunk Jennies all around the fruited plain. And the DOJ has fully adopted it, as has the DHS. So it got me doing some research, and there's some pretty troubling things in that initiative. It also explains a lot, especially the way that they're recruiting now, the way that they've targeted their social media accounts to go directly at women to apply. And I drafted this op-ed and tried to pass it to the ex-employer over at the Center for Renewing America, and they insisted that I add things that were not attributable to my perspective on that. And
what does that mean?
I refused to do that.
What are things that are not attributable to your perspective?
They wanted me to add an entire paragraph where I said that women and men are the exact same and equally qualified to be police officers, which is exactly why we need to solely recruit more women. Reasons. And I don't share that sentiment. I am pretty radical on this. I think that women should be protected. I don't want them out there fighting against bad guys, evildoers. I think that men are expendable and they should be the ones to go do that. So I know that makes me a misogynist, but at least I'm not a misandrist the way that the DOJ is now, who hates men. Was not able to publish, or at least get approved for publishing. And then now I have a second ex-girlfriend, so I sent it on over to the Blaze, and they didn't make a single edit and published it yesterday.
This might be a good opportunity to talk to the audience just a little bit. We've got a smaller audience at night, obviously, but people don't realize what it is that you kind of got into. I think they have a quick sense that you no longer work at the place you did. Do you want to kind of talk about the hiring, the constant threat that my friendship posed for your employment, which is a really weird thing, and then the final eventual firing of these assholes? We're gonna just
let's do it. Let's
just talk.
Let's uncork this thing.
Let's do that.
So our mutual acquaintance who gave us all that sweet money to buy jet skis to bribe us because we're bought and paid for by Kash Patel.
Apparently,
he was associated with this think tank. Was actually a fellow for them, and said that they were in the market to hire some fellows with expertise on federal law enforcement, national security matters. And you and I were at the top of the list. And then you, as a magnanimous and generous person, said, I think it would be better if just Steve gets it because it's one position, it's a full-time position, he could support his family on that. And you pulled back from that application process and handed it over to me. I went through the hiring process, joined in February 2023, actually the day after that I testified, or no, I spoke to the security division in the FBI. I finished up my SecD interview and then rolled on over to their office and was like, hey, where do I sign? They gave me a one-page document of like, we're hiring you for this salary. And then that started the process of being a fellow for a Washington, D.C. think tank, got a lot of behind-the-scenes look at how that really operates. It essentially is a landing place for people who work in government to do what government people do only in the quote-unquote nonprofit sphere before they can get back into government, which is a whole lot of nothing. Never find a fight that you want to fight. We can't die on this hill. And then I went in like, hey, I just want to be prepared for tasking. I'm available for tasking. Let me do this. I was told that you're going to be helping guide the weaponization committee. And then it was pretty clear when the weaponization committee stunk at what it was doing that I was told I'm not allowed to criticize the weaponization committee. Ergo, I'm not allowed to criticize particular members of the weaponization committee, particularly the chairman, Jim Jordan. And then that was expanded out.
What's the logic in that? What's the logic of not criticizing anybody that doesn't seem to be doing their job?
This is the perfect case of they use the same vocabulary, just a different dictionary. Access. We don't want to lose access. Well, to me and to you and probably anybody who knows what access means in the English language, that's we have access to these people. We have the ability to influence them on policies that are going to impact the country. But access to think tanks in Washington, D.C. means we have the ability to call them up so that they'll come to our donor conference and meet with the honchos that are giving us a lot of money, so that gives them the perception that we have the access that the normal people understand it to mean. And if you criticize Jim Jordan, then he's not coming to the donor conference, as are any of the other members of the Republican caucus, as my guidance was expanded to the point where anyone who was a Republican could not be criticized at all.
That sounds perfect, though. I mean, I just think that's how you win, right? Isn't it like, what did you say about the fights that you can win?
You always win the fights that you, no, wait, that's the other way around. You never win the fights that you don't engage in.
Which means you never lose the fights that you don't pick.
Well, you always lose. That's the misconception. I mean, hey, look, we didn't lose the budget fight. Like, we didn't fight on it, so we didn't lose. Well, they got everything across the line that you were against, so I think you lost. But we didn't take the L on paper. Our name's not attached to it because our reputation means everything, and the reputation has really got me into hot water with you because there's a movement, don't you know? There's a movement. It's not truth. It's not accuracy. It's not calling balls and strikes, because we're on team truth here in the Suspendables. It's if that person is convenient for our political side, they're beyond criticism. So, you criticized James O'Keefe, and that got me in some hot water, and I was told that I could not associate with you anymore. And I said, that's a no for me, dog. And I called the bluff on that one. And actually won that hand.
So look, okay, first of all, we had sound where we weren't getting a lot of your audio out, and so I've been sitting over here tweaking it. That's why my eyes are all over the place, and I'm boosting the sound, and I've got it to the point where now Jigsaw Massacre has said, Steve sounds good. Check this out. 5 almonds.
Ooh, I'm ready for an ultra marathon, Jigsaw. Appreciate that.
It's a 5 almond rating on your audio, which I love. Okay,
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. The beef that existed, which wasn't really beef, it's just that I think the guy's a scumbag, and he acted like a scumbag. He offered me a job while we were both being offered a job. He offered me a job and then walked away from it. And he didn't even offer me the job. Someone else offered to pay me, and he offered to be the conduit to pay me so that I could have a job and do something on behalf of his organization. And I don't think a lot of people know this, so maybe we'll just chat about it now because it's funny. And by the way, folks, the phone line is open. If you guys want to call into the studio and chat with Steve about us, about any of this stuff, we can talk about that, or anything that's in your heart. You want to talk about your excitement about Kamala going on Joe Rogan, take your pick, like whatever you're into. We'll chat about anything you guys are psyched about. But the thing that blew my mind is he sort of lost his company, I found out later, because of the way that I looked at him when he invited me to an event, and the way that he behaved around me versus the way that I behave in general in public, which is that I'm very lighthearted, but I'm really serious about work stuff. Particularly like if you want to dance around like an FBI agent and wear FBI hats, I'm out. That's the no for me, dog. That's why we had beef, because he wanted to have a dancing chorus line of people pretending to be FBI agents. And I'm like, hey, bro, I actually did that job. And if you go out and have people pretend to be FBI agents around me, we're all going to get hit with felonies for like impersonating a federal agent. I can guarantee it.
Didn't he ask you to wear a mask too as part of that, if memory serves?
Other people were going to wear masks. They were going to be masked FBI agents, so you couldn't see their faces and wear hats. I mean, the whole thing was just dipshittery. It was there was no other way around it. And so people were like, oh, James wanted to do song and dance, and Seraphin was like, that's fine. Just not with me. I won't be there. I'll walk away because I didn't need it. And I guess the big thing is a lot of folks come to James O'Keefe and they want to be famous. They want their name out there. They want their face out there. You know, that's the opposite of my world. Like would love if no one knew me. That'd be great for me. Like, I don't want any of this shit.
You
This
just
is
wanted
what we
to
do.
work surveillance, right? Like, which is the opposite of being famous. You need to be somebody who walks past you and it's like no recollection of you at all. It's just a mind wipe.
So I've literally done, I've done exercises where we had, you know what a rabbit is?
Yes.
Okay, so for folks' awareness, a rabbit is someone who pretends to be a target, but they're actually trained to recognize surveillance. So they're a hard target. I've had rabbits that have gone through like the CIA's training, that have done domestic and international operations and this sort of thing. I've 3 times presented myself to a professional rabbit and had them not recognize me in 3 circumstances where I walked in.
You're just that forgettable.
2 times I was actually, I made contact, like verbal contact with them. Once in a hotel, once in a mall, and then a 3rd time in a gun store with 3 different costume changes while on a surveillance operation over a period of like 8 hours. I find that to be like a win. If you can disappear into the crowd by changing your clothes and your appearance and just hanging out, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I actually aspire to do. Not just stand on a stage.
Not
with
be
some-
internet famous? No.
Not be internet famous. Yeah. In any case.
So that was one of the several strikes. The early strikes were criticizing Republicans. Almost got canned over that.
Right.
And then you who didn't work for the organization, criticizing someone else who didn't work for the organization, got me in hot water with the organization.
Who was the person that I criticized that didn't work? Was this Julie?
Julie was the second one. It was the second one. That was the final straw. I was cautioned again not to have a public relationship with you because it was too offensive to donors. They were, I guess that was the fear, that the donors would see me on Friendly Friday of the Kyle Seraphin show.
And they would be like, oh, that's the guy that also associates with hating Julie Kelly, even though we never brought up Julie Kelly.
Yes.
Julie Kelly is a rotten human being, by the way. She's nasty as all get out behind the scenes. She's dumb. She just doesn't know things.
We tried to be a resource for her. I mean, all my
That's the whole
interactions with
thing.
her were, Julie, I want you to be right. And she would ask me questions about things.
But her questions indicated she didn't know shit about the thing she was talking about.
Yes, but I will also take that as somebody who's genuinely curious. I mean, one of the first journalists that I interacted with that I have a lot of respect for is Cheryl Atkinson, and she's been in the game for a long time. And she said to me, Steve, I work in the news, but doesn't mean I know everything in the news. What I'm working on, I try to bring myself up to speed, but I might ask you questions that you think, like, how do you not know this? So that's sort of the way I approached my interactions with journalists.
How do you not know that the FBI doesn't have a uniform on a search warrant?
I mean, give them the benefit of the doubt. But, once the use of deadly force on the operations plan, that whole canard came out, and there was just a refusal to accept fact independently from all of us. No, we didn't collude. It was just like, hey, you're wrong on this. I want you to be right on this. And then she started to push back on us in ways that were pretty nasty. Like, I mean, like almost like a North Korean style, I'm going to go after you and 3 generations after you because you dared to contradict what I said, not publicly, mind you.
And she had her fat brother threaten me, which is funny on Twitter.
Thank you for your service.
The guy who's citing his Marine Corps training from 1994.
Mom said,
Hey, buddy.
Uh-oh, we have an addition.
Oh, you got to go back.
Can you hear him in there?
I see little people walking around.
That's my little guy. All right, let me go get my little guy out of here. Steve, continue to monologue for a second.
All right, thanks for joining us today on the Kyle Seraphin Show, where we're doing an open line Thursday night. Your opportunity to dial in and ask questions. And Kyle and I always do our Friday, Friendly Friday, where he and I kind of cut up a little bit, react to news of the week by and large, and that's always a good time. But we don't really get to interact with the audience very much outside of the live chat on Rumble. So it's a pretty cool opportunity to call in and just monologue, and then we're kind of a captive audience at that point. I mean, what are we going to be rude? Are we going to say, hey, we're not interested in what you have to offer? Actually, with us, you're probably more likely to get the captive audience that's like, really? There's a space laser that's interacting with the node in your nose.
We have
Tell me
had
more.
so few. There's an alien talking to my head. Space lasers are deemed at my house. So few of those come in.
That's disappointing.
It is a little disappointing. That was my son Bodie who decided to just creep in. He just came in and you heard him. He started. That's a classic 3-year-old monologue.
Mid-sentence.
Yes. Come in full speed, no slow down, no intro, just bringing it. That's how
I
it
think
rolls.
that it's worth sharing the origin story for the name Bodie because
I will in one second.
FBI connection.
So I'm going to bring a caller on. You are on live with Steve. Who are we talking to?
Hey, this is Dan.
Hey, Dan. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. Just driving back home. Out cutting down a tree from a folks' place. So.
Were you just posting pictures
of guys on the road?
Were you posting pictures of something you cut down? No, that's somebody else. I'm trying to see what's going on in the chat at the same time.
I'm missing the chat, unfortunately.
You are indeed. Well, the chat's missing you. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to Steve before?
All right. We'll call. I have not. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Dan. How you doing? Where are you calling me from?
Wisconsin. Midwest, man.
You probably know Garrett. Because everybody in Wisconsin knows Garrett.
Everybody knows everybody.
It's Wisconsin nice.
Dan,
yeah.
Dan, I just talked to a guy the other day who's from Australia, and he said Americans are such a silly bunch that when he meets people and he tells them he's from Australia, they ask if he knows the person that they know in Australia too.
Seriously. Aussies are unique, though, too. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, they're a special breed, right? They're kind of a little bit
We're
goofy.
dumb enough that we ask them if they know somebody in New Zealand because they kind of sound like them.
Well, the fact is if you're from New Zealand, everybody in New Zealand knows each other. I think that's true.
It's like a
I
one
made that up
family.
tonight. It has to be.
Nice.
What's going on with you, Dan?
Well, you got me thinking a little bit with kind of Steve's opening. So I know you guys have covered a lot of territory since then, but just the 30-30 agenda. I want to kind of get your thoughts on, what takes law enforcement. I'm not opposed to the FBI incorporating 30% of their leadership as women. I think maybe that'll help the ship sink a little faster. But
hold on, Dan. Let me put a point on that. We'll accept 30% FBI female leadership if 100% of FBI SWAT are females as well.
HRT.
The entire tactical division has to be females. All right, carry on. Keep going.
Terrified. Well, yeah, because more equal.
That's right.
Well, the weird thing is, so we had a community incident in the last couple of years here where somebody I knew actually played volleyball with at one point, shot 2 officers and killed them. He died as the male officer returned fire. But we actually got my business I'm in ended up with a talk with the chief of police and, got some pretty real reflections from that. The whole community responded in a great way, but there were some pretty obvious things of like, hey, if this doesn't wake you up to female law enforcement should not be in this situation. And I just kind of wanted to sound off with you, Steve, with you, Kyle, like what gets local law enforcement like I watched this chief of police come back around and go, well, now my daughter wants to be a cop. And I've really got some reservations, but I'm like, dude, get out of here right now. You let your daughter into this role when you just had this example. You're not worth, So I don't know. Just wanted to sound that off you and get your thoughts on what wakes people up to that, especially in that career.
Go for it, Steve.
Well, the fact that there's some sort of glamorization of this type of work, which we can't deny because, look, it's an interesting line of work and you have a lot of TV shows and movies about cops, right? So people kind of culturally want to move to that because it sounds novel and exciting. But I think you just have to face reality, right? We just have to be honest about looking at the assessment process and saying hey, why we have a standard and the standard needs to be raised. It needs to be met because we want the best possible force out there, right? And just even confronting it from the statement of, if you are prioritizing immutable characteristics like the genitalia between your legs, by definition, you are providing the citizens an inferior product. The people who pay your salary, the people who are depending on you, when they hear crash in the middle of the night and they're scared out of their mind and they're able to dial 911, are they hoping for a 4'11", 108-pound Karen to show up? Or they want Michael Clark Duncan showing up? And everybody's afraid to have that conversation and to say it that way plainly. In the same way, I mean, similarly, like I've dealt with child sex offenses, and I said, hey, I want to have an assembly at the school, boys in one room, girls in the other. And I'm just going to talk to the boys and say, like, stop taking dick pics, because girls don't care about that. They care about the thickness of your wallet. So study hard and get a good job. And they're like, oh, they said, no, you can't have, that's insensitive.
Real talk, right?
Steve just like slaying people with truth.
I think you can characterize it in a way. I mean, you can accuse me of being misogynistic because I don't want women to be cops. I say that I'm chivalrous. I'm saying that I value women more than men, and I don't want that for you. I don't want you to be interacting with an evildoer, and I don't want you to be having to exert yourself in a way that you're not physically capable of doing, and you just need to say it. I mean, it's a reality. It's a biological reality, and nobody.
But how many
actually say
people?
it.
How many people aren't even aware of that biological reality? Like, how much of it is watching a martial arts movie where the chick, kicks butt? Okay,
it's
great.
It's
how
Marvel
many people
syndrome.
actually absorb that and think?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe has done wonders to the public perception of what actually happens. I mean, if you just she's straight like, hey, if I hit you and I'm a 5'8", 150-pound guy who runs a lot, so I theoretically shouldn't be generating that much force. Like, I'll fracture your orbital socket if I hit you once. Not even that hard.
Yeah,
No.
we had those experiences.
Let's be honest, but yes.
So the screwy thing was, Dan, is that we had these moments, and every law enforcement academy has some sort of force-on-force training.
That's
so
really where it has
Steve and I both went through some of these. They call it padded room time, like where you're basically doing first you're doing it on a mat and you're kind of going through the motions. But then when you start getting into a padded room where you're actually wearing headgear and you're wearing boxing gloves or whatever else, you got some kind of padded feet wear, and you're going to kick against walls that are padded as well. I've shoved girls with a kick, which doesn't feel great to do because it's not something I'm really excited about, but they have to understand what it's about. You give them 25% force from like a right leg of a guy who's my size, and I'm not big. Like, I'm bigger than I ought to be right now. I'm like a $185 and 5'8". If I shove you with my legs, I've made girls leave their feet, and they slide down the wall like a cartoon. And they go, oh my God, that must have been close to 100%. And I'm like, that was close to like 25%. Like I barely touched you. And you weigh
snap man.
It's because exactly you weigh 120 pounds. Like I can throw that on my shoulder and run with you, and I have done that kind of thing. So
there's
that's
also
how I married
other
my
things
wife, by the
too
way.
beyond like the physical. Like, you don't screw up my clubhouse. Like, we have a really good system here that's keeping you safe. We don't need hen in this pack of roosters here, because what's going to happen is you're going to get sexually harassed. It's going to happen. And
then you're going to do one of two things. Either you're going to go around and slay the office, which is not really that hard to do. It's like being a chick in the military overseas. Or you're not going to want that. And then you're going to have problems because there's other people that do. Anyway, the culture thing, I used to say this about special operations, because there's a small subset of women that are physically capable of doing special operations the way you see guys do it in the
Become
SEALs.
UFC fighters.
Yeah. They're going to go become professional athletes. Yep. They're not going to go around like the subset of women that can and want to do special operations is so small as to be it's negligible, and they can be ignored. And so I'm sorry that you don't have every opportunity that everyone in the world doesn't get it. Like, you just don't. Some people just can't get to do stuff. I can't be a basketball player no matter how good I got. I'm not tall enough. I can't jump high enough. It's not going to happen. So there needs to be this frank discussion. And it turns out we actually used to know this kind of stuff, I feel like, in this country. When we started divorcing reality because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. Like, reality tends to hurt feelings a lot worse, and it results in people getting killed on in your community. That's where I think it goes.
Even a consideration of the feelings for the slim minority as opposed to the majority, right? Like I said, the crash in the middle of the night, everybody wants that giant 6'8" dude coming to help them out, right? But we don't want to offend the 4'11" female. Well, what about the person that's got to make that 911 call? Like, well, what about their feelings?
What about the actual victim?
Well, what about the service? So this is the issue I think that happens in education as well. And so this is a broader conversation in this country, but it's about government. There is a service that is provided. Like, the school's function is to educate the children. not to provide a place of employment for the adult where they can feel actualized about sharing their gender or even just being a shitty teacher. Like that's not the function of it. So I think these unions, and I think law enforcement unions as well, they work against the public good. The good is the public wants someone capable of doing the job of law enforcement. And maybe that's a Steve Friend, and maybe it's a Kyle, or maybe it's just only Garrett O'Boyles that are much bigger dudes who have this very, very slow burn temperament, and you watch their fuse burn for a very long time, and they know if they have to get physical, like it doesn't matter how big the person is, they're going to bring them down. That's cool too.
Yep.
So there's a, and the same thing with a teacher. It's like they need to have the ability to educate at the level they're going to educate. And I'm completely indifferent to any of the other things that go along. And it's like, well, they have some problems. They need to be accommodated. That's not the function of your job. I'm sorry. Like with or without reasonable accommodation is not part of the thing when the mission has to be carried out. And these should be thought of as missions, I think.
You might aspire to be an airline pilot, but if you don't have eyeballs, it's just a physical limitation. And this is just a physical
love the
limitation.
idea. Yeah, Stevie Wonder in the cockpit is probably amazing at entertainment, but bad at hitting the runway.
You're too good on the intercoms. Would not be just eating the mic.
He's good on the intercom. There's a job for that. Maybe he can record the intros.
It floored me. It floored me that the whole community could react and grieve and, back the blue. And okay, I think you should in this case, right?
Oh yeah.
But no, like the people that were close to me that I mentioned, this is why I don't think there should be female cops. It was like, ugh.
Here's the thing. We have to phrase it in the way that can be heard at this point in time. I think that's the answer. And I think Steve has said it. Men are expendable by the way that we're actually built, by the biological sort of just the calculus that exists for humanity. We've always known that. That's why men go into battle and women don't. If women want to rival with that, look, there are a very, very small number of women that have been, celebrated war heroes. And I'm not taking anything from them. I'm saying that the number that exists is so infinitesimally small, it's not necessary to achieve the mission set.
We're not 30%.
Right. It's not 30%.
Look, the president is too important to send onto the battlefield. So he doesn't go. I'm sorry if Joe Biden wakes up from his human Roomba experience and is like, you know what? I want to be on a SWIC boat. It's not going to happen.
I'm going down range. We got to do the Dana. He goes, and guess what? And by the way.
Guess what? By the way.
That's my new favorite Joe Biden. Is guess what? And by the way. Yeah, he nails it so good.
Got to build back better. So can't believe it's not butter.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for your guys' thoughts. I won't take up the line for too long, but appreciate you sending it up.
It's a good thing to meditate on too. I appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for calling in, bud.
Absolutely.
All right, that frees up the line, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll leave the line open for the next round. Man, it's hard that hurts feelings when in our lifetime that has changed. Right?
Yes. I mean,
I remember G.I. Jane being freaking ridiculous. Number one, because she wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and so and Navy SEALs are not G.I. Joes, Swabby Joe or something. So she wanted to be a SEAL operator, and that was absurd. And she wasn't.
They made a ridiculous Hollywood movie about it, right? And
like the logistics of being a woman on a SEAL team are so crazy to me. And the reason I know that is because I've done all the same things they do at Bud's.
Look, I'm friends with women who are like very fit. Let's work
studs.
out like studs, right?
Yep.
And they will say like,
you're friends with
MTG,
but
right? I can't lift heavy this week because it's that time of the month. Oh, really? Because the bad guy doesn't care.
Right, but I do.
I care about that for you because you're not going to be your strongest today.
Correct.
Because you have a cycle problem. I mean, let's just be honest about it. You have physical
what does that
limitations.
Even? And this is two guys talking about it, so I can see women getting irritated. But here's the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, that cycle is the magic that men have to protect. That's the reason why. Because you can produce the next generation of human beings, and we cannot. The end. We can be interchangeable. We're like a tap out another dance partner sort of situation. It's a finite resource versus one that is virtually infinite.
It's virtually infinite, and it's not just the small things. And the fact that they lean on these small things they're nonsensical, like in this, back to this 30 by 30, they say things in there like the grooming standards are discriminatory against women because short hair is discriminatory. Well, do you want to be the police or not? Because to be the police, you have to have short hair. Because guess what? If you get into a fight, guess what? And by the way, if you get into a fight, your hair can get pulled. That's why we have that standard.
Right.
We don't want dreadlocks
Your
out
mustache can't be a big handlebar, because if someone gets your handlebar mustache, you're probably going to cry like a baby.
Yes.
Or you're going to get super dangerous. So the New York Police Department used to allow ankle holsters. And I was told by a lieutenant, so I have like fairly good information, a lieutenant and then another guy who was a detective 3. They were both explaining to me that they no longer are allowed to wear an ankle holster, which is amazing, because I think ankle holsters are the greatest way to donate a weapon while you're in the middle of a foot pursuit. Yes. Yeah, foot pursuit, or which feds don't do. But I would see feds wearing ankle holsters, and I was like, cool. That goes along with your suit, it goes along with your salad, and it belongs in the break room. You don't belong going out on the street. And what they said is that the reason they stopped doing the ankle holster game is because people would get into fights, take guys to the ground, and when they would be done, they would have scratches, bloody scratches all up and down their ankles. And people were like, what in the shit is going on here? Like, why are these dudes fighting our ankles? And they realized that's where the extra gun is kept. And criminals knew it too. And so you adapt your tactics to what the bad guys will do. And if you have long hair, man, there is nothing easier. First of all, what do they always tell you to control if you're getting into a physical altercation? What do you got to control?
Your airways.
The head.
Yes.
Right? How many takedowns are based on a head movement?
Yes. I mean, that's awesome, by the way, as a dad. They just
head controls?
tip the head back and then turn it to the side, and they fall right down, and they think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. All basic takedowns start from head control, because that's where your balance is centered. That's where you're most unbalanced, and you follow your head. Your body always does. So anybody knows that. So being able to pull the head down. Now imagine I can do it with a handle that's like a foot long off your head. I can just grab a handful of hair and drag you around, and they can. So it's like, do you want to be pretty, or do you want to be a cop? Do you want to be pretty, or do you want to be an operator? They're kind of mutually exclusive categories. There are women who look beautiful with shaved heads. Joy Reid's not one of them, but some women do.
Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor did it okay.
Yeah. I mean, Demi Moore did it okay in G.I. Jane. She's all right.
We don't adapt the mission criteria to fit your preferences. The mission criteria exist, and therefore you mold yourself to be capable of doing it. And this 30 for 30 is the exact wrong thing.
And it's beyond just women. They try to bring in cultural Marxism essentially through it. They say things like it's a homophobic culture, that it's whiteness that they have to eradicate from it. And if you go back to that Smithsonian piece where they say like, oh, having long-term goals and being on time and believing in English common law and being polite, those are whiteness. Like that's
I'm for it. I'm for whiteness, by the way, and so are all my not white friends that want to be
that's
successful.
Just called being a normal.
It's called being successful in America. My wife and I had this conversation the other day, and it's very, very simple. It's like all of those things that we just talked about. That's called being American. That is American exceptionalism. It's that you hold yourself to a time standard, that you are going to try to do things that are difficult and be successful at them by following the rules and by not stealing and whatever else. Like all of those things they're not being a nerd, and they're not whiteness, which is what we used to call it. Like it's like being a square.
People really truly understand like how rare our situation is in this country, and the fact that we're just flushing it down the toilet. Like the fact that you have an interaction with a cop and not only don't have to bribe them, but if you do, you're probably going to get arrested, is a one-off that's never been seen at any other point in human history. The fact that we are that honest of a society. So we should be honest enough to say that job knowledge tests, particularly if you're dealing with taking away people's freedom and possibly their life, are not discriminatory. If you don't know what it takes to be a police officer, if you don't have a fundamental criminal justice knowledge, then you can't be a police officer. The stakes are just too darn high. It's not flipping a burger.
Well, the worst thing is that you have people try to argue both sides at the exact same time. Like they're literally arguing against their own point. Like they want more qualified cops, and they want people to have cultural understanding, and they want them to be sort of social worker / ninja / kill operator. And at the same time, They also want to argue against anything that would mean that we're going to select for something that's pretty exceptional, which would mean that they have a good temperament, that they have an academic ability to do this, that they can flip the switch and process people spitting and yelling in their face and being abusive and not react emotionally, which takes a lot of restraint. It takes a lot of maturity. So we want people that are not mature, but we also want them to act in a mature way. We set them up for failure. And the craziest thing is watching like women at the FBI Academy. For me, I didn't go through a police academy, but I have seen enlisted women, which is kind of like not that far away. Look, when they do physical tests, it always breaks out in spheres. It's like not fit women, and like medium fit men, fit men, special operators. That's the break.
It's
like, and they're like, they're at another category.
Look,
There's not very many people that could do the stuff that the guys I used to work with could do.
I am a beach cruising bicycle when it comes to running, right? Like I can't sprint much faster than I run long distance. I just happen to run long distances relatively fast, right? But I'm telling you that I had a good 1.5 mile time, and running my 1.5 mile time was a comfortable pace to pass the women's 300-meter sprint time for the FBI. Like not even close. Like I would have cruised past women as they were sprinting 300 meters. And I'm not a world-class Olympic athlete. I mean, I'm just
Dude, I
proficient
sprinted
at that.
past the last Quantico class that I was at when I was doing something. I was hanging out there. I was wearing jeans, and I was wearing like a athletic shirt, and I had a coffee mug, and I passed the sprinters while they were sprinting. They were practicing 300-meter sprints, and I passed them, and I called them a bunch of, I jeered them. I jeered at them.
You jeered.
I'll
That's well said. Family friendly.
I'll keep my language to myself on that, but it's not good.
No. And it's not, the trajectory for it is even worse because, we had the South Bend Police Department get sued now by the Department of Justice, and the facts of that lawsuit.
Didn't Pete used to run that place?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Didn't Pete Buttigieg,
the Rear Admiral was in charge.
Shouldn't that actually be something we're talking about? I feel like I didn't hear any of that brought up, but was he the mayor when that was going down?
I think this has been a long time problem. It would be interesting to put the timetable up there, but the lawsuit alleges that they have discriminatory hiring practices because they have job knowledge tests that discriminate against minorities and fitness tests that discriminate against women. And then also there's an ageism thing. They say that fitness tests discriminate against older people.
That's not true because I was still able to do it. We got a caller on the line.
George Hill would have passed it.
Who's jumping in with us?
This is Mr. Roke.
Hello, Mr. Roke.
Yeah.
What's
I
going
guess I've been listening. I actually just got home. So what's the topic tonight?
We've been talking about an article that Steve just wrote about the 30 for 30 initiative, attempting to push 30% of the law enforcement leadership in the country to be female by 2030. You got any thoughts on that?
That's pretty ridiculous.
Well, just tell us how you feel about it.
You misogynist.
Well, I actually have quite a few members of my family that are police officers. None of them are women. And just hearing some stuff they've told me, like my one brother-in-law, he's a sergeant, so he does a lot of the. He actually does a lot of the training and stuff. And some of the stories he's told me about some of the female officers and stuff, it's pretty ridiculous. Like, we are trusting these people to keep us safe when they can't even use the equipment they have properly. So I don't know.
Isn't that what you're hoping for? If there's a bump in the night, or let's say you're out of town and someone has to respond to your home and you're not able to do it yourself, aren't you hoping that's going to be like a 5'2" aspiring badass that's afraid of a raccoon?
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, right. No.
I actually had a female
not at
FBI
all.
agent tell me, she was like, "Can you imagine?" That's how she talks. And we just heard a story about this woman was doing like a search in the woods, and a rabid raccoon had managed to station itself underneath one of the bureau vehicles. And so when they went back to open the vehicle to get like boxes for the search, this raccoon ended up attacking this woman, bit her a few times, and she got it away, and then she like emptied a mag into it. And this was very shocking to the female agents. And she was like, can you imagine? Like, you're this badass FBI agent, and then, like, this raccoon just, like, attacks you, and then you have to shoot it. And I was like, why is she a badass in this story? I don't understand. And she was like, because she's, like, a field agent, and she's a badass. And I was like, you think that when they give you a gun and a badge, you immediately become a badass? I think we're going to have a problem with you. By the way, that woman now works at headquarters in the Civil Rights Division. She's a black female, and basically is skillless. So she's going to go after FACE Act violators, so that's helpful. But in her mind, she's a badass that may have to fight a raccoon one day.
The stories out of training are legion, and they always, not always, I would say a disproportionate amount of them pertain to females in the academy.
Being ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah, like...
Out of a class of 50, I think we probably had 8, 9 females, and like all my crazy stories are maybe 3/4 of them involve females. So
it's terrible.
It's a disproportionate amount of people that you just are kind of questioning, what brought you here? Because to me, the ultimate was they try to scare people away that first day, right? Like they have the defensive tactics training, and then they make you watch these videos of state troopers getting shot on the highway when they're doing traffic stops, which you're never going to do, but they still want to like confront you with there could be deadly force at play. And we had a girl try to leave, and they talked her into staying, and I don't know why.
So, Chris, this is interesting because we've been talking about some of the history that Steve Friend and I have gone through in the last 2 years, and one of the things that's probably the weirdest is the advent and the rise of FBI Barbie, who is a blonde female who used to have a BS job in the FBI, and she left, and now she's on Fox.
But first, she facilitated her leaving. It wasn't like you and me and Garrett who were just escorted out one day. She
resigned. But here's the thing, and then she wrote an op-ed about how the FBI is good after Steve and I were public. Here's the thing that's really wild about her, though. The reason that she left the job is exactly the thing Steve just mentioned, which is that her friend got killed doing the job. Because it's a real possibility, although it's very, very small if you're an FBI agent. It's incredibly rare, but it does happen. And her friend got killed while serving a search warrant for child pornography, did a really bad tactical job in Miami, and she couldn't handle it. And so she left the bureau, and then she claimed it was because the FBI was corrupt and she wanted to see it be better. But the reality is that people that know her told me it's like, yes, she never recovered from her buddy being killed. Which is a thing. It's like, I don't want her buddy to be killed either, and I don't want her to have that job. And if that cracks you, if you think that the fact that your friend might die is too much for you to handle, then you shouldn't be in that job.
You should recognize that you're a liability and step away, and good on you. Now I question whether or not the timing of it coincided with us making protected whistle disclosures that became public, and then you took that and cribbed those notes and wrote an op-ed for Fox News, and they got to pay contributorship for it. After joining the FBI allegedly to you, because 9/11 inspired you to join the FBI in 2010?
10, yeah. 9/11, 2001 inspired her to join the Bureau in 2010. All these things all end up being related in my mind. But I think it's interesting that you said you've got family members and multiple in law enforcement. None of them are female. What do you attribute that to?
I think a lot of that probably has to do with how we were raised as children and culture and just the community we grew up in. We grew up in more of a small community where, that's just the way it was. The males were the police officers, the females were the nurses, and that's how it was,
and still is in most of America. It turns out
should be. Yeah. But I do have a question. So if she's the FBI Barbie, I think the question is, does she have a pink Jeep or a pink Corvette? Because that's what Barbie.
She has both. Her husband is a hedge fund manager.
Yeah, her husband's a multimillionaire hedge fund.
Okay.
So she didn't really sacrifice much.
Yeah, she has whatever color vehicle she wants. That's Barbie like.
I could expand, women in certain, not wanting to see women in certain industries. Like, for example, the industry I'm in.
I was gonna say, are there a lot of women welders?
We don't have one. There's a reason for that.
What is that reason?
The demand that we expect out of our workers, as far as the weight they have to lift and the workload they have to lift, and I mean, there's no way. Yeah,
but that shouldn't even be something
extremely tough, and I don't want to see it either. Like I always kind of think back, like, would I want my daughter to be doing that?
Thank you for saying that. Yes,
No.
this shouldn't be a delicate conversation. Like, I mean,
that's the funny thing. We have to dance around it all the time.
If you have a son and a daughter, and they both become police officers, who are you more worried about? We're all more worried about our daughter.
My daughter.
That's not even a question.
Absolutely.
And all right, let's start naming professions. Let's be equal opportunity criticizers here. What are some professions that men should not attempt to do? Like, I don't want my kids going to a kindergarten class with a male teacher.
Correct.
I know he's capable.
Unless it's John Kimball. If it's John Kimball, then we allow it. He has to bring a Fiat.
I will judge it off of the precision of the fire drills.
Yes, the precision.
That's kind of funny.
I'm not going to let it, and you're not going to let your kid be in a daycare like that.
No.
So
that's weird.
When I was in elementary school, we had all female teachers, right? Until I got to the 5th grade, they hired a male teacher, and we were like, this is so weird. We're all weirded out as little kids, like, what? Boys can be teachers? What? It was so new to us.
I think 5th grade was about when I had my first male teachers as well, outside of like a gymnasium situation or outside of a coaching.
Gym coach could be a man.
Yeah, gym coach can be a man. Like we had a guy, you'll like this.
Which means that all the principals that were men were just gym coaches before that.
It's possible. We had a coach whose name I cannot remember. I think his name was, God, he had such a terrible name. His name was Chuck DeLong, I think. But I might have missed it. I might have mistaken it. But everybody called him Coach Balls because he constantly was scratching his nuts. That was all he did. If he was talking to you, he had his hand on his nuts. And it was an all guys high school, so like we'd just be like, "Hey man, did you see what Coach Balls did?" And they'd be like, "No." And then he would walk by, he'd be like, "Who's Coach Balls?" We're like, "You are." And he was like, "Oh yeah." And then he would walk out like he was kind of a dumb guy. It was fine. You can get away with that. But at some point, like I think 5th grade was when I first saw like male teachers, and they were very academic and they were very sharp. And I went to a very fancy prep school where we got really good academic instruction, and that was fine. They weren't weirdos, although my 5th grade math teacher had a PhD, and he was weird as shit. Like he was like Unabomber weird, brilliant but weird. So I don't know.
There's less hand holding with that. Like
that's
your
right.
Penmanship has worked its way out at that point. You kind of have what you have.
There's not someone like lingering over your back, and then also it was an all boys school, so you can kind of have like a different. When I was in 5th and 6th grade, I went to all boys. When I went back to 7th and 8th grade, I had back to female teachers because it was co-ed in a Catholic school. So go figure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some professions that men don't definitely belong in. There's probably a bunch of them if we thought about it.
Masseuse.
Yeah, I mean,
masseuse.
I think certain.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think certain parts of nursing, I think is a little. I think it depends on what.
There's a lot of nursing that's really
with that. Like trauma nurse, I think it could go both ways, because especially if you're rendering CPR, like you just have to have upper body strength that a lot of females aren't going to have to be doing pumps on the chest.
I've done 2 hours of solo. I've done 2 hours of solo CPR.
Yeah.
With some breaks because the person spontaneously regained circulation and then dropped off again, and so we just like. I was like, someone needs to bring the family back here and watch me do CPR on their 88-year-old grandmother who doesn't have any functional ribs anymore. Like, she's not going to. She's like, what are we doing here?
They're powder.
But yes,
at that
there are
point.
some physical. There's a lot of physical parts of emergency medicine for sure. And honestly, I like any part of medicine. I don't blame men being involved in as nurses or otherwise. But it's just, I don't know. There's just some jobs where I'm just kind of like, a woman can't do that, and there's some jobs where a man can't do that either. And if you do, You're either a weirdo or the job is compromised, or both. Probably both.
Right. I mean, my one brother's actually a nurse, and because he's a male, he was. I don't think he was even on the floor a year, and he moved to management because they want the males more in the management role, and they're seeking them so much because there's not that many of them. They just move them right up.
Oh, management of the nurses. Okay.
Someone needs to tell these women how to do
he's
things.
He's either, he went to like being the charge nurse, or now he's a manager of a burn unit. Before that, he was a manager of the COVID unit. I mean, yeah,
it needs to be done.
But actually, my mom and my other sister were nurses as well. My mom's retired, but my sister's still a nurse, and yeah.
I kind of hope one day that someone throws the transcripts of these kind of chats that we're having in front of a congressional hearing.
It'll go well during the confirmation.
God,
and I want to be on the record
much.
that I don't think men should be nuns.
Yeah, nuns.
You got that right. Oh,
None of the nuns should be men, period.
No.
Solid facts. Actually, women used to have a hard time on the surveillance gig I used to do too. Because there are places for women to be investigators. Like there's women that could be white collar investigators and a lot of the stuff, like just as well as men, I'm sure.
Or even undercover type of things. Like if you're
going
to catch a predator, you're not going to do that with all the time with a male.
Well, for what it's worth, I would dress Steve Friend up. That's what I would do. I would take a guy that has very minimal facial hair.
Very pretty, and I have really good.
We're shaving your legs, buddy. We're sending you in. That's so good. No, but there are like women would have a hard time. We'd go into crappy neighborhoods all the time, and you'd be sitting there, and you're just peeing in a bottle. And what are they going to do? They're going to have to go find a Popeyes. And
or even like the racial angle of it. Like I worked narcotics, and they basically said like we have to have a certain number of black guys. We have to have a certain number because we're going into different areas, and they're not going to sell to a white guy. They'll sell to a black guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a tactical decision. That's not racist. That's just recognizing reality.
That's the mission determines the requirements of the people that do the mission.
It is weird when you think about that they were like, hey, we have an opening, but it's only for a black man. I mean, and that was perfectly legal and reasonable.
And totally reasonable.
Yes.
And nobody would be like, oh, you got to hire me. Unless you're Andrew Schultz and you want to do blackface, which is...
Rachel Dolezal.
Or Rachel Dolezal, yeah. Pretty funny. I've got our chat going off about whether or not women can pee in bottles. That like women are deciding whether or not they could. It's not an easy thing to do.
I'd be even more concerned if it's they're on their period. Then what?
No. Logistical concerns I don't deal with. Look, I'll tell you. I'll show you right now. This is what it's all about for me. I keep one by the desk still. This one's fresh.
Just as a reminder, I love how it's half full.
You
had a long day, sir.
That's just water.
Allegedly. You're just really well hydrated.
No, you always want to bait it with water so you don't just have like nothing but pure urine in there. That's not a good thing to keep. You want to water it down immediately.
That sounds like a training scar.
Yeah, people learn this sort of thing. The worst is if you forget that you left your pee bottle in your car for a couple of days, like over a weekend, and come back and it's in this, the summer in Virginia, and you're like, this thing is not salvageable, but because I'm a federal agent, I'm going to salvage it. I'm just going to go pour it down in somebody's lawn, and somebody will walk by and they'll be like, did a homeless person's bladder explode and they died here? And you're like, nope, it's just my pee bottle.
Just wait till you get to Southeast DC to do it, and nobody will bat an eye.
I would open the door and pour it out before I left on the end of a surveillance most of the time, and nobody noticed. Just a liter and a half of sort of like room temperature urine. It just hit in the streets, and then I would drive off. It's horrible. If I was good, I would park next to a street drain, but not always.
It's biodegradable.
That's what you called in for, Chris, right? You wanted a little bit of that information?
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're better off now, or maybe you're permanently scarred.
It takes a lot for that to happen.
I have to imagine so. I figure you got rough hands, Steve. You've seen the Suspendables fire pits that Garrett and I have?
Yes, they're pretty dope.
Chris made those, so
nice, Chris. Oh, it makes sense. A welder. Okay, you're an artist, man.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything else in your heart?
Well, I'll let you guys. No, I'll let you guys go for now. I got to get inside and give my daughter a bath. So
That's a noble thing to do. I'm skipping bath time to hang out with you guys, but
as am I.
Yeah, that's good for you. You missed it. My little man ran in here too. All right, bud. We'll
all right, well,
we'll
good
talk
night
to you next
and
week.
God bless.
God bless you too.
Yep,
Thanks for
bye.
calling in.
Later, Chris.
Dropping off. That opens the gates. We got another opening there. I'm going to hold on to Steve for a little bit longer. Steve, are we doing Friendly Friday in the morning?
Yeah, if you want to. Well, we got to cover down on the U.S. Army guy who got.
We can't talk about it now, but folks, we got a story that makes both of our blood boil, and probably information you're not going to hear anywhere else. Our locals chat. So, by the way, if you guys don't know how to join the program, you can join it by getting into the locals. Let me put it on the screen real quick. If you guys want to join the chat or you want to get and call into the show, you go to KyleSerafin.com, become a member over at Locals, and then you will find the pinned post is in fact how you get the number. We got another caller on the line right here. I'm going to address the Locals chat in just a second here. Who are we talking to? Oh, we lost him. That might have been my bad. There it is. All right, you're live. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to hang up on you.
That's okay. Is this Kyle?
It is. Who are we talking to?
This is Barbara Childs. Remember me?
Hi, Barbara. Yeah, I remember you. And this is Steve's on the line, too.
Hi, Barbara.
Oh, good. Hi, Steve. Hey, let me turn my TV down.
Good plan.
So, first of all, I want to tell you I want to see a hazmat sticker on that pee bottle.
No way. It's in my house. We're totally unregulated here. We're off the grid. There's no OSHA inspection. Yeah. If I had an extra hazmat, I would stick it, but I don't.
No, I was just joking.
The reason why,
so
Barbara, is
tell
because
you,
it says it's a lemonade. Do you see? It's a lemonade bottle. That's the key.
Get it?
Oh, as long as it's not a Gatorade bottle.
That's right.
So, so I want to tell you a story about how I can take down a guy. I'm only 4'11 and a half.
Okay,
how
you're my
I can
wife's.
take down a guy.
Okay, that's my wife's height.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
And my daughter had this boyfriend that she was only like, I think she just turned 16. She's a good girl in school, high school and everything, but she got this boyfriend that was like 20. And I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming that, and we had a good relationship. And so she came to me one day and she says, Mom, I want to talk to you about something. And I thought, oh, shit. so she said, but I'm afraid you'll get mad. And I said, Melissa, the only thing that's going to make me mad at you is if you tell me you're pregnant. Then I'll be mad at you, right? So she told me, no, Dave and I, we want to have relations. We want to have, she was 16, he's 20. And I want to be calm because I know what my mom did, which forced me to just go into a relationship I didn't want to be in just because she said no,
Okay.
And so I said, okay, that's fine. I'll arrange it. I was a nurse then, and I was working in a lab at the time. And I said, but I have one condition. I said, I want Dave. He's older than you. I know he's been around other women. I want Dave to go to the lab and let me draw. This was back when HIV was the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just came in, I don't know, 80s, 90s, I guess, early 90s. Anyway, I said, I want him to come to the lab, and I want to draw an HIV test on him. I didn't like the guy. I didn't like him at all, but I wouldn't tell her that because it would make her want to be with him more. So
okay.
She said, okay. So she told him, and he agreed to it, and he sat down in the phlebotomy chair when he came in. He sat in the chair, and I got the needle into his arm, and I said, looked right in his eyes, and I said, so tell me what it is you want to do with my daughter. And he had this look of fear on his face that you would never have seen before. He's like 6 foot tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized what my power was at that time, right? So anyway, he passed the test, and I made him take my daughter to the OBGYN, and they counseled the both of them. And she got her birth control pills, and they broke up the next week.
Interesting. I saw that going differently. Like maybe he's never been heard from again because someone decided to get rid of him. I'll tell you how that's
disappointed where you put the needle.
My kids are quite a bit younger
I
right
know,
now.
right?
My oldest is 7, so I've got a little bit of time, I think. But I also have a lot of suppressed weapons, and I'm just saying it right now. The first date my daughter goes on will probably be a lot like what goes on in Bad Boys 2, if you've ever seen that. Where I'm probably going to have some friends that know how to make bodies disappear, hang out, pretend to be drunk, and we'll have a little chat about what that's going to look like and what the time limit looks like, and the fact that I know where bodies go away. Like, there's it's real simple.
I told you that I was yeah. I didn't have a dad like that. He had a gun, but I don't think he ever knew even how to use it.
Well,
like
my instinct is kind of like I'd rather let someone think I'm mentally unstable. It's like I'll be cleaning guns on the table in my boxer shorts, that kind of game. and then he can just decide. He can just decide. He can just look over and decide: is this the kind of guy that I want to get on the wrong side of? Hopefully, my daughters will know better.
Don't count on it. Don't count on it.
They're pretty sharp.
But,
my girls, I mean, they're growing up in a pretty weird household, for whatever that's worth.
Right. Well, I told you, I lived in Beirut and everywhere, so I'm pretty tough. But I told you I was an exchange detective for the BXs and PXs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was watching on the cameras one day, and I saw this group of men around the CDs, and they were stuffing them all in their jackets and everything, right?
They're stealing. Stealing Gwen Stefani and Tragic Kingdom. They were getting some No Doubt CDs.
I thought they were probably more into like the Now series.
Some Queen. I like this.
But so my exchange detective office was outside the BX, so I knew that they were going to come out the door, and so they came out the door, and I tapped them on the shoulder. I said, "Can you guys come with me, please?" And one of them said they didn't speak English. I don't know how they got in the BX. One of them says to me, "Look, he run," and they were all running across the field. I don't know. Have you ever been to Bitburg?
No.
Bitburg, Germany.
I've not.
they got a BX, and there's a huge open field that's not even military property. So they started running across the field, and I took out after them. Turns out they were Albanians, and the base police officers, SPs, security police.
Yeah.
They heard all the commotion, and they said, "What's going on?" And someone said, "I don't know. There's a blonde that just ran across the field after a couple of guys that stole from the BX." And I go, "Oh, Dan, that's Childs."
I like that you've just sort of casually dropped on us that Albanians are known to steal Queen CDs, which I would not have known otherwise. That's a unique little piece of information that I probably
vital nuggets. I'm storing that away for.
Yeah, I don't know when I'm going to need that, but I might.
Store that away.
It's providential.
That's good stuff.
Anyway, they took out after me and him and them, and we caught them and got all the CDs back and I got in so much trouble for running after Albanians, but
that checks out.
But anyway,
I don't want that for you either.
But another thing I wanted to mention was, I don't think women would like a male nurse in the new mothers after they have a baby.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Postpartum nurses.
Yeah.
I've worked in postpartum as
they don't need to be there.
I've worked in postpartum as a paramedic, but you kind of know what your spot is. You're not getting up, you're letting women take care of women. You're doing the things that men need to do, which is, the physical aspects of moving equipment around and, drawing doses out. So there's a way to do a lot of these jobs that can be played on either side. And when you're in the medical field, you get to see a little bit of that. And I did, but I tend to agree with you. There's some places it's not the place to be right then.
Right.
And if you understand
I wouldn't want a male trying to, I've worked in neuro, ortho, ER, ICU. I ended up as a certified case manager, where I took down several doctors that were doing things that weren't right.
That's shady.
That I reported.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you could call me one of the suspendable nurses, because I saw it coming that I was going to lose my job.
That's kind of how that has to work.
Yeah, I mean, there was a neurologist that had this worker that got injured. He was driving a golf cart and got hit in the head with a golf ball and knocked him off the golf cart, and he lost consciousness. He ended up with a brain hemorrhage, and his vision was in and out, black at times, and just wasn't seeing well, and the doctor wanted to let him start driving again. And I said, no. I said, he's not driving. As long as my family's out on the road, he is not going to get in the car. He's not ready to go back to work,
What if there were some Albanians that had stolen CDs? Would you have let him drive after them?
Nope. No, they'd get it even worse.
I like that Steve has the same weird sense of humor that I do. This is why we get along. Barbara, there's a
I get it.
Yeah, there's a kind of a sickness that happens. It's a certain type of people. If you've been on a base long enough, and I know you did, that stays with you. It changes you in a way that may not be good for the rest of the social people.
I stood up to a command sergeant major in Bosnia.
Was it Tim Awals? No, not in Bosnia.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't Tim.
No, he didn't have. Yeah, he didn't carry a gun there that I saw, but I did. I had full Kevlar flak vest, the whole thing. Stayed in the tent I told you about, and one of the Army people gave me his gun so I could just hold it for a picture. It never fired. It never. The last, I wouldn't even know how to hold it if he hadn't told me. But I got the picture.
Yeah, well, you basically would have been qualified to be an FBI agent too.
There you go. and the vice president.
That's right. Who allegedly owns a Glock. What do you think? You think Kamala owns a Glock?
Do I think what?
Do you think Kamala Harris actually owns a Glock? Or do you think she just thinks black people know what Glocks are?
No. There's not a word that comes out of her mouth that's the truth. Not one word.
Seems like an honest assessment.
And well, I don't know. Do you listen to Candace Owens?
I try not to these days.
Well, she's got this interesting investigations that she's been doing lately. She got a picture out of Kamala's book that shows Kamala's standing with her grandmother, Beryl.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she found out that Beryl, that's not the person in the book. That was one of their slaves. Her parents owned slaves in Jamaica. They're very wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a picture that she's naming as her grandmother, Beryl. Turns out Beryl was on this talk show. No, a friend of Beryl's was on a talk show. I forget the name of the talk show, but her grandmother Beryl is Irish. She's white. So Kamala is Jamaican and Irish. Not an ounce of black in her. And
maybe.
So this whole thing's about
but I don't necessarily take
blow up.
Candace Owen at her word. She also had some pretty interesting ideas about the Jews.
Yes,
that I've seen her kind of go off the deep end with. So
yeah,
she's found some secret knowledge. You know what? She actually is. I feel like kind of demonstrating
Gnostic.
that. Yeah, she's got secret knowledge that we can't.
I
have.
don't listen to her very much because she talks as loud as sloppy as Kamala, but. Judge Joe Brown, he has come up with the same story because he knows the grandmother. So anyway, it's interesting. I was just wondering what you thought of it, but anyway, that command sergeant major came up to me in Bosnia, and he says, "You left your heater on." I had a JP8 fuel heater, which was horrible. Gave me headaches. It was horrible.
I bet. I could just imagine what that smelled like.
It was awful. And I left it on one morning because I had to run to the bathroom because bathrooms are like down the wood runway and all this stuff, and it's snowing outside, and I didn't want to turn it off. Anyway, he decided he was going to check my tent while I was gone. I was gone 3 minutes. And he comes up to me and he goes, child, you've got a deferment in your tent. And I said, why? And he goes, because you left your heater on. And I said, I was only gone 3 minutes. He says, you could have set this whole camp on fire. It was Slavonsky Broad, Camp Slavonsky Broad. And I knew I did wrong in everything, but I was pissed that he was picking on me, and I'd never done anything wrong and just picking on me. And I said, Command Sergeant Major, let's have an understanding here. Oh, he told me what we do with civilians is we send them downtown at their own expense. You can no longer stay here at the camp if you do it again. I said, you don't understand, Command Sergeant Major. I didn't sign on any line. I can leave here on a C-140, is it 140?
130.
130.
Transport 130, C-130, that's how I got there. On a C-130 anytime and fly back to Ramstein. I don't have to stay here, so don't threaten me.
I like that he threatened
never
you.
bothered me again.
I like that the military tried to do military stuff. I always found it weird when there were civilians on the base doing civilian stuff. So, hey, there's got to be rules. If there's no order, everything breaks down.
I get it, but he could have counseled me a little more gentle.
Well, he's not trained for that. If he was going to have feelings, they would have issued him feelings, doggone it. You know better than that.
Feelings.
He was only used
Feelings aren't
reprimanding
real. They come
males.
from the
That's the
thought
problem.
in your head.
That's right. That is exactly
It's
right.
just a thought in your head. But anyway, we ended up good friends and all. But
That is the other way that
and
works
I got
out.
a NATO medal. Got a NATO medal for, which probably isn't worth much for it right now. But anyway, I just wanted to say hello and tell you that I've been a nurse and all kinds of jobs, and I like doing dangerous things. So
Yeah, we know.
What can I say?
You're an adrenaline junkie. I appreciate that too. I appreciate you calling, kind of hanging out with us for a little bit. And an interesting technique. Again, women and men are not the same. The way that you threaten a man is going to be different than the way that Steve and I would do it. And that's the way the world's supposed to be working. It's supposed to have a balance, right? Yours is with the needle in his arm, which I don't hate that. By the way, the chat was very excited about this story going somewhere deep. Like, where was the needle and what was in it? And was there an injection? But you were responsible.
It was in the AC.
Yeah.
Only wusses need injections before a blood draw.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I'm a weird guy.
Seriously.
I like my blood draws out of my hand, and I request it. I always ask them to go for one of
that's
these.
more painful than the AC. The
Not for me. It's not.
the
These things are
Oh.
basically like non-feeling. They're just tools that are attached to the end of my arms.
Nothing but scar tissue and
depends if
callus.
you've got good
Like a
veins or
man.
not.
I got manly
Like a man.
vascularity
Vein.
on all my veins. You can hit them from the doorway.
Okay, well that's more information than I wanted to know.
That's just how it is. Got good veins. So is Steve. Steve is basically a walking oak leaf because of all of his running.
I'm very
low
vascular.
body fat.
This is true.
I know it. Barbara, thanks for joining us for the
My
evening.
veins aren't so hot because
Yeah,
I'm 70 years old now. So
they flatten out. That's just the way it works.
thanks. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
All right, it's nice chatting with you. There you go. Steve, did you know about the Albanians and their general interest in Queen CDs before this?
No, but it is filed away. Crucial, critical knowledge. At one point, I guarantee you, in the very near future, I will be dropping that on some prominent news station. Maybe
Let me tell you something
Newsmax tomorrow.
yeah.
Newsmax 12:30. They're going to throw it to me. They normally just don't have a topic, and they just say, "Steve, talk." I'll throw it then.
They just drop it on them. There's been
I have to lean on something when I have the radio room in my ears while I'm on live national television.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. Is it Newsmax? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you went immediately and knew it was Newsmax.
Well, so folks, you never know behind the scenes when you're watching TV shows or if you're seeing people being interviewed. Half the time, we can't even see the guest or the host because they do such a poor job. And that's definitely the case with Newsmax. That was often the case when I was doing Fox. We did that intro roll here, right? That had all those little sit down. Like I couldn't see you when we were doing Jesse Waters. So we're just operating in the black. Like it looks like we're all three on the screen and we can all see each other. Like Steve and I can see each other right now because this is not that hard to do. But for some reason, when you're doing live television on a real network that has millions and millions of dollars in their control room, this turds never get, they call it a video return. And if you don't ask for it, they don't give it to you. And sometimes they're like, oh, we can't do video return. Well, I don't know why not. It's not that hard. It's a freaking loop. So
they're just like sit in this van and talk into a camera in the most natural way possible.
Yeah, just naturally look at this blank lens and stare at yourself in the darkness and try to act like you're responding to a real human being that you hear on the phone.
And make sure you smile.
Make sure you smile. Which, by the way, if you see the Jesse Waters bit of you and me,
they told us that big time. Make sure you smile.
I cheesed the shit out of that interview. The first time you and I went on Waters together, I just remember when you were talking, I was just like, it's so goofy. It's such an awkward format. Live television, especially those short little 3-minute hits, there's never been a time that I can think of that I've met someone for the first time and talked to them really quickly about something very intensely for 3 minutes and then disappeared. That's so unnatural for human beings to do. I despise doing TV for that reason.
And you learn how each network is a little bit different and the things that are mostly bad about them. I mean, like Fox is big on, we need your talking points ahead of time. And then you give them the talking points and then they say, well, can you give us more details on those talking points? And you give them more detail and then they just tell the host them so the host can say them and then they just toss it back to you after they've monologued for 8 minutes. Don't you agree with everything I just said? Yes, I do.
My favorite is that I don't have talking points. So I don't answer those, but I don't do TV as much anymore because I just don't like it. I think I scared him off. I just told him it's not my thing. I don't have a single thing, Steve, that I think about that I want to talk about for that short of a time.
3 minutes is tough. Yeah.
It's not interesting either to me. No. It's like you're just filling in space for somebody. You're basically allowing them to get from one commercial break to another. Doesn't do it for me. So for those of you who watch TV, that's what's going on. They're just trying to figure out how do they fill each block. How can they get enough people lined up to say things that are not the same? Have a couple different faces pop up. By the way, we're really good guests because we have really good feeds. We've got good sound.
Except for Newsmax, they don't like my feed. They're the only network out there that uses Skype and says like, oh, every time I get on, they're like, hey, we need to change your audio. And I'm like, no, you don't. I just use Skype. Oh, we need to change your camera. I'm like, no, you don't. The camera's mounted. Every single time.
Well, Skype has a lower throughput for audio, so they're using a lower quality audio, and the video is also somewhat restricted. That's why people use Zoom, but all those are weak compared to what we use. I have a direct feed into your computer. I'm basically inside of your head right now.
All right. No, I really didn't think that thought.
No, I've been doing Inception since we started the show. What do you think about this Candace thing? Like, there's a couple of people that have kind of gone off the rails of late. What do you think causes people to go that route where they just, I don't know, whatever it is. They end up in the middle of a rabbit hole. They go Ryan Maddow on me. Ryan told me the reason that he got so excited about Flat Earth, by the way, was because YouTube kept taking down his Flat Earth videos, and he thought there was something to that.
Thought that YouTube was in on the scam?
They're in on it, yeah. I told him that YouTube lets me know when my stuff hits hard because it censors me.
Censors it? And it violating community standards?
No, it either gives me a community standards or it gives me a copyright hit on something that doesn't matter. And I just won the last one I did. I just started appealing them all. But anyway, rabbit holes. There's a couple of people that have prominently gone down those of late.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think causes that?
It could be like a chicken and an egg sort of situation. Like maybe they've always had that and they just never came up in the course of conversation. I know people and had long conversations about a whole host of different things. And then all of a sudden they just bust out a conspiracy theory and then they're like, it's nothing. You know?
People hit you with that stuff like when you're out somewhere and they act like you obviously understand and know and agree with their crazy idea.
Yes. I mean, because we agree on tariffs, you know about the chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. And I don't care to know more, to be honest. But I
the need to know more is not intensifying in your case. No. You're not going to click the button on the propaganda piece.
And I mean, I don't know I don't know Candace Owens. I've never interacted with her or anybody in her sphere. So I think she had, from what I understood, like a contentious relationship when she was with Daily Wire, and she was saying things that were sort of like over the top in order to get fired, I think. And then she might have like caught a live one from an audience standpoint because she was saying things that were offensive, and then realized, well, if I continue feeding this beast, it'll pay me really well. So there could be a grift angle to it, but I don't know. I always
there's a lot of money in being really, really controversial and crappy. There's this guy I just found today called Jonathan Hinkle. Have you seen him?
This sounds really familiar.
He's 25 and he's 100% pro Hamas. And he cries about the death of Hamas leaders.
Is he
He's heartbroken.
American? Has he ever been to Gaza?
No, he's a white guy. He's like an attractive looking. He looks like what is that guy? Is it Zac Efron that was just in the? Was he in the movie like Bad Grandpa?
Character? Yeah, isn't he in Baywatch?
Yeah, he's in Baywatch. Okay, so Zac Efron. He's like a Zac Efron looking guy. Like he's that
bizarre.
relatively handsome 25-year-old guy who's like super pro Hamas. He has 2.8 million followers on Twitter.
Oh, that's what it ultimately comes down to. And that's how it is for our elected officials. That's why they invite people to congressional hearings, because they have a huge Twitter following. We know that.
Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't make the cut this time. Your Twitter following is not big enough for us.
Mine's pretty decent. I feel like I could go in there, but I also have the other baggage that I say what I think.
You have a lot more of a fluid situation. Like you could take a massive hit at any given moment.
At any moment, things could go sideways for anybody in the audience.
The collateral damage could just fall to me, where I'm just kind of like, well, I'm Lieutenant Weinberg. Why are you yelling at me, Colonel Jessup?
Poor Steve. You just made the mistake of getting lumped in with whatever. Like, what do we like? I'm an equal opportunity deliverer of rounds. Like all targets of opportunity. I had someone call me and ask me one time. They're like, "Is there an end game here?" And I'm like, "Nope." People hand me ammunition, and if it looks like it has a target, I just send it. At this point, like I don't fire indiscriminately, but if you're a bad actor, you don't get a pass because you did something that other people
because
like.
we laugh at it. We laugh at it. We don't take it seriously. A lot of people really do think it's real life, and
They do think
it's just a necessary evil at this point.
Yeah, folks, I don't want to blow your minds, but Steve and I 100% agree that Twitter is not real.
It's so not real that we dead name it. We call it Twitter still.
Oh yeah, I feel bad about that actually. Sorry, we had someone that tried to call in and it didn't go through. So if you tried to call in, please call in. The line's still open now until we'll probably take one more call here and then kind of wrap it up. This is just Michelle just said no mercy. That's the way I operate. It's true.
Cobra Kai is suspendable.
I don't feel like somebody was like, we're friends. And I'm like, we've never met. We're not really friends. We're not friends because you follow me on Twitter or because we've interacted on Twitter.
That is mind blowing, is it not? That is the retaliation. I remember, this was I guess in my mind, it's like more when social media was in infancy, and having a conversation. I was a cop. I was sitting down with another cop and his fiance, and she was talking about a frenemy conversation she was having with a girl she worked with. And then at the I was like, kind of, tell me more. And at the end of it, she was like, yeah, I got so mad that I just unfriended her.
Unfriended her. Yeah. The ultimate early social media move. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let you know you're not my friend anymore.
I don't follow you anymore on X.
All right. You called back in. You're on live with me and Steve. Who are we talking to?
It's Rose.
Well, hello.
It's Selma and Louise. Selma and Louise, dude.
Oh, dear. Are you guys in Lewiston?
Greetings from the state of Idaho.
How are you handling all that freedom?
I am. Well, it's only the second day here, and I pretty much beat up Rose all the way here. And it's quite a drive, but beautiful and awesome, and even better now that I'm here. We're out on our way to CF Panty Raid. And yeah, it's all good.
Make sure you're bundled up. It's going to be in the 40s tonight.
Oh, stop. Knock it off. What happens? You sweat in your sleep, don't you?
Steve?
I don't sleep. I'm an apex predator.
Yeah.
I just do perimeter checks all night.
Yeah, Steve just puts drops in his eyes that are kind of like a goo that dissolve by the morning.
Oh, you know what, Steve? We saw on the way. We saw the reptile park sign. The thought of you.
That they're my brothers from another mother.
You can't help it.
Like, I'm not gonna lie. You had to pick up the kid from jiu-jitsu tonight, and it was a little bit chilly for me. I kind of regretted not having a hoodie on at 68 degrees.
It was 68. Steve is like my kids.
It's gonna be in the.
My
That's
kids,
perfect. It's gonna
my
be in
kids
the
went outside the
computer
other day,
tonight.
and it had gone from being 104 degrees in Texas to being like 76 degrees outside. And when they went out for the first time, when it wasn't already sweltering, even though the sun wasn't out yet, they said, "Dad, do we need our coats? And is it going to snow?" It was 70 something degrees, like high 70s, and
What kind
they
of
thought it might snow.
Arctic hellhole are you putting those children through right now?
That's right. Now it's actually starting to get nice. I can go outside. Okay, tell people about your epic journey, ladies. Go ahead and lay it out there. Tell the crew.
So we have a couple of questions.
All right.
For anybody who knows, why are there ports of entry in the state of Wyoming?
Wyoming?
Because they're flying.
Wyoming.
Yeah, they're flying.
Anything that is that touches the outside world, like if it touches like an international airport, you have a potential for a port of entry there.
There's signs all over, up and down the highway. It says port of entry.
Now, we could go a bunch of different places with that when we were talking. We're like, oh, none of them good. You know,
some of them are kind of nasty.
It's scandalous. This is what happens when you put two ladies in a car, send them across, and they have no interactions with other people. They're just driving through, seeing nothing but like cowboys and sheep. It starts getting dark.
Oh, we're getting a little goofy. And then, so today, here in Lewiston, I was walking into a gas station to get a fountain soda, and
You can't say you can't say fountain soda
door.
anymore. That's like some weird New Jersey stuff.
Oh, where it is? What is it?
I don't know.
Coke?
Yeah,
That's from
probably.
Georgia.
Sounds right.
So I'm walking in, and this guy was coming. He was about 5-6 steps behind me, and I stepped aside. I looked at him. I said, "You could open it." Something I could never do in New Jersey.
How did that go for you?
He didn't,
Great. He
scream an
smiled.
expletive?
No, he was actually surprised. In New Jersey, yeah, they would have slammed the door in my face.
Yeah, that checks. But not in America. That's not how things work in America.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. I'm glad I'm here.
I'm glad you're there too.
The
So,
truck-
are you engaged already?
The living truck's not here yet. Yeah. What's that? Are you engaged yet? No. You know what, Kyle? I want to tell you, seriously, you said something to me in chat one day on Rumble, and I was highly offended at the time. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought you were right. I was right. And I don't know if I should tell you that.
You should. I already knew. Here's the thing. I already knew when I told you. I don't know what it was, but I know I was right.
Yes.
That's just how it is.
The ego.
Go ahead and tell people what it was. Tell people what I told you.
Tell them how right I
want to know
was.
how I'm changing your life for the better.
Again, right? I told you this before. You have no idea most of the time. But so we were talking in the chat about how I'm single, and like that's every time, it goes near that topic, I'm like, yeah, I'm still looking for the warrior. And you said, and I told you about some of my bad dates, and you said, it's you. What you said.
I'm shrugging. I'm shrugging right now. Mm-hmm.
You were right. You said it's you.
Right.
And I'm like, you're right.
There's one common denominator. Look, I'm just looking at problems. If I'm going to see something out there, that doesn't have to be a mean thing. That should be empowering. Because imagine if it was not you, then you have no say in it. That's the worst.
That's true. That's true. But I was, like I said, I was highly offended at the time, but I had a lot of time to think in 2,500 miles. And I was like, you know what?
I
He's
love
right.
a road trip thinking. I love coming to a conclusion where I change my mind on a long road trip. I've done that a lot. A lot of thoughts like that. Well, good. So what have you decided to do differently? What do you think what's the sticking point for you there?
You're gonna laugh. Don't laugh.
I'm not gonna laugh.
No, you can laugh. It's all right. I shouldn't
All right.
tell you don't laugh.
I might laugh.
So I I realized that I was so indoctrinated into feminist thinking that I never really learned how to let men be men. So I think what I'm going to do differently is, well, first I'm going to find a church here because it was hard to find one at home, or in New Jersey.
Yep.
But I think I just need to re-educate myself in the ways that I interact with men.
I like that a lot. I think that fits into the theme of what we talked about earlier. It's about balance, right? If you're trying to make yourself something that, like, who needs to be your man if you're your own man?
Right. Exactly.
Make some space.
It's kind of what I did, why I did what I did today with the door. I know it sounds silly. It's a small thing, but I was conscious about it. I needed to do that. So yeah, you were right.
We are
So,
relatively simple creatures, and we respond really well to challenges. So like, if you challenge a guy to do that, then he's more inclined to do it than if you just are sitting there passively. But it applies to that, like, with anything. Like, you want us to take out the garbage, you say, like, oh, I bet you can't do it in under 30 seconds. And Kyle will be developing some sort of sophisticated mechanism that you get the trash out in 28 seconds.
We'll have a stopwatch, a training program so that he can improve his time. They let me warm up.
So here's
better use of this oxygen.
Here's the introductory level anthropology discussion on that particular topic, which there's no room in the podcast that I've found recently to put it in, but it's something that I've been thinking about. And one of my buddies took an intro anthropology class 24 years ago, and he came back and he said, the thing that binds societies together is the concept of reciprocity. And it's asking someone to do something for you, putting yourself in someone else's debt with the expectation that they will then ask you at some point in the future. And that's a really hard thing for us to do, to put ourselves in someone else's debt. But that's how you build community. It's not by putting other people in your debt, which is what we think. Like, let me help you. No, it's let me ask you for something. And it's very weird that that's the way that our brains trigger a positive response. There's an entire weird sort of negative version of this. If you watch a movie called Choke, there's a book as well, which is the same guy who wrote Fight Club. I can't think of what his name is. But his whole idea was that he would go and choke on things, let people save him, and then they would feel connected to him for their life because they helped save his life. It's a real thing.
God bless you, Kyle.
What did this come out of your conversation in your 2,500 miles?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Because I don't want to, I'll give you the psychology some other time, but yeah, it was big part of the conversation. And let's just say I have a really hard time letting people do stuff, right? Without feeling like I have to do something back. And
it's really hard.
The other thing? Oh, the Taj Mahal. So, across the 2,500 mile drive, every night that we stopped, we had to take the two cats and the dog and our stuff and bring it in and out of, hotels, which was tons of fun.
I taught her how to pack for a night or two instead of bringing her whole suitcase.
This sounds hellish. This sounds like a very female road trip. Steve and I would have done this with backpacks.
We just would have rocked.
And so the cats.
I have basically that, but I have also had a smaller bag where I would bring like a night or two in that smaller bag. I taught her how to do that.
Fantastic.
I was taking the whole suit out of the car and rolling it.
Everything was coming in and out.
I like it.
So we had to. Go ahead, sorry.
Did the two of you know each other? This was something my mother was asking me, who hangs out in the chat with you guys in the mornings. Did the two of you know each other in any way, shape, or form before the podcast that I started?
No, that's what I've told you a million times. You have no idea. My family has grown because of you. My real my actual family is more. It's more. This is more of a family to me than my actual bio family.
I didn't know anybody in the chat, and I've met 4 people in the chat now.
How wild is that?
So yeah, Rose and Dee have both come to New Jersey to help me. So that's what we were talking about, reciprocity, right? So I used to think, or still kind of think, that friendships are transactional. And because I can't imagine that people would want to do stuff for me just because. And then Rose said to me that sometimes it's helping the person who's helping you to do that.
That's right. I had that conversation with someone last night, high net worth individual. He was telling me doing for others, most people will never realize what that reward brings back to the person who's doing for others. It's true.
And I never think about it. Like when I do stuff for people, I don't think about it that way. I just sort of feel like that's what you should do. But when people do it for me, it's a totally different experience. I feel like kind of ashamed, but again, it's not therapy. But in addition to Rose and Dee, part of the reason I'm in Idaho now is because of FBI Panty Raid and and Mrs. Panty Raid and the people that I met, that you met at the Elks when you gave your talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is my family, and I'm so grateful to you. And I've said that I never said it to Steve because he lives in Florida, but with Garrett, like, you guys really changed lives, and in more ways than just being and not just, but in more ways than being whistleblowers. You've changed lives. So I thank you for that so much. Really, it means a lot.
I think it's cool to hear it. Thanks for being open to it, I guess, because that's not the intention. I don't think Steve, that wasn't where we were going with this per se, but the fringe effects of this, or the butterfly effect, has been kind of amazing.
It's been an interesting ride, man.
Girls, did you see the kind of the OG intro that we just pulled in, that 3 minutes of random footage that I had pulled together?
No, we were out and we're 3 hours behind my normal time. So I was like, oh, shoot, Kyle's on.
Yeah, we're Pacific time now.
Well, when you get a chance to just watch the first couple minutes of it, just to watch kind of the old intro reels that we used to do and all the different settings where, in the trailer and before we got the it's
I just saw I can't remember what I was watching. I went back to watch something on your old show and I saw that and I was like, wow, what a long way we've come.
It's really come a long ways.
Well, just your tech skills alone are it's amazing. So we have to tell you about the Taj toilet, and then we'll go, and then other people call in.
No, I think you guys are the last one of the night. You guys are taking the cleanup spot. So go ahead, share it.
Because we're awesome.
I love cleanup stuff.
No, it's a great wrap to the messaging too. Like I said, learning how to let other people do for you, letting other people bless you, is what Garrett calls it. It's a lesson in humility, which is a really important thing that we've all forgotten.
Yeah. Well, you know what else? You said something about the kid that has 2 million followers or something, who's like in love with Hamas.
Yep.
Steve from New Jersey, by any chance?
I don't know.
Because I have a theory. I have a theory about this. I think these guys that are this is their attempt at being heroes to their brainwashed leftist women, of which I used to be one. So this is their way of sort of showing their manhood. But it's so messed up. I mean,
it's
being
disordered.
Rebels, I guess it's being a rebel. I don't know if it's being a rebel. It's people are always looking for popularity. It's that angle. Women do it too. I see it, but it's not something I want. I don't wish it on anybody, to be honest with you. It's like they can have it. Good riddance. Yeah, well, you're with you and Steve and Garrett, and Marcus also, like, your fame or notoriety has not exactly been easy. So you are very good men, all of you, and you have to be. So your mom did a good job. I don't know about your dad.
My dad did a good job. You don't know about my mom, is what you mean.
Don't throw Mama Seraphin out of the bus.
She's listening right here. Steve, has it been an easy road?
You need to have your mom on the show.
I don't know if we can honestly, I don't know if the Kyle Seraphin show can handle. I might have Steve interview my mom on my show. That's probably the safest move.
Just have her call in for a few minutes.
That doesn't sound like a good idea.
We would have fun. I'd
we'll
have
bring her
Kyle
on.
stories.
You might
That'd
tell.
be great.
You might tell stories. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
There's all
we
kinds
we
of
have
there's
your palate
unlimited ridiculous stories from my time. The best thing about my mom though is that her memory is like it's not great. So it'll be more than one story mixed into one story, and she'll
have
realize
composite stories, even better.
Yeah, it'll be composite stories for sure.
You told the one story about was it about Thanksgiving?
Yes, the Thanksgiving story is famous. She can't live that one down. Steve, when when the Pilgrims got to Plymouth Rock on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, they celebrated the first Thanksgiving with Sacagawea.
And then they hopped on the Oregon Trail and forded the river to make sure to not die of typhoid.
Before they got to the Alamo.
And came up that Lewis and Clark.
Shook
That's
McKinley's hand when he took the oath of office.
That's right. Right before he got shot in the chest. Yep. No, my mother is a composite story generator, and she does it effortlessly without intention. It's very fun.
So did you have to sleep with your brother when you guys got in trouble? Did your dad make you sleep with your brother because you were fighting?
We had 3 boys to a room when I was a kid for a while. So we had 3 bunks like the 3 little bears. And then at some point, I remember a couple of them were in bunk beds for a while. At some point in time, my brother and I had our own rooms when we were probably in high school. But we shared a bathroom, so we would have fights in the bathroom where nobody could hear us, and we would draw blood and bleed on the white tiles. Like that was a thing. He would punch me in the lip and split a lip or something, and I'd try and break his nose. Yeah, my parents insulated the house at a really high level, Steve, because they were trying to figure out how to not spend money from capital gains. They were trying to put all the money into the house. So they got the house triple insulated to the point where like every room was soundproof. So you could just beat the hell out of each other in there and nobody could hear you downstairs. It was like death could be happening upstairs, Royal Rumbles, and you wouldn't even hear it in the other rooms. Amazing.
That sounds epic, and it sounds like a parenting win because if you never heard it, did it really happen?
Yeah, it didn't ever happen. I mean, we were like maniac kids. We were putting like tack nails that you'd use to hang up pictures in the end of our Nerf bow and arrows that would shoot those stupid like heavy duty carrot size ones. And so we were trying to put like nails into each other's arms and stuff. We were out of control. That's what happens when you have a bunch of boys. It's different when you have girls. Just saying.
Hey, Steve, how many siblings?
I do. I have 2.5 siblings. I have a younger sister, a younger brother, and an older half sister who has no arms and no legs, is just a torso. That's why I call her my half sister. Leave it there. I'll just leave it there.
Bobby. What's her name, Craig? Bobby.
What's her name? Bobby?
Okay. Hey, you're like Bob and Bob on the water. That's terrible. So
They're slap happy.
Note, yes, we are. You guys, the burn scars in Montana are bad, really awful, and
Just from the space
but
lasers?
I came to this. Yeah.
Tell us about the grays.
Lasers did it, or nature, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But we came to the conclusion that this was actually a good thing because everything grows back greener after the fire, and it's kind of true for everything. After you burn stuff down, you can build it back bigger and better. It's kind of what you guys are doing. You know, you kind of had to burn it down, and it's bigger. It's going to be better, and you know.
This might be a little bit. This might be a little bit too positive for the end of our Thursday.
I want to be pissing on the ashes, and there will be no regrowth. I said if I was ever brought back, I told the guys earlier this week, if I was ever brought back, I would only accept some sort of high-level senior executive, and I want there to be palpable fear at all times, wherever I am. People only speaking in hushed whispers for 10 hours a day.
He's serious
walk
too.
Through the office with a riding crop, just like slapping it around.
I feel like Steve would walk around like flipping Darth Vader. Like he just wants that level of.
I'm now rethinking that I might need some Nerf guns with nails at the end. That sounds fun.
A Nerf nail gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and neck shots only. Non-fatal, painful neck shots that everybody can see.
That's why I only want men in the FBI, so I can just do crotch shots with nails.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nail gun to the dick is definitely a strong statement.
It's very dark in there, Steve, isn't it? In between the ears. Very dark in there.
Oh, you guys have no idea how dark Steve and I get. Like, we're so much nicer when we're talking with you all.
You're getting the Jesse Waters on TV version.
Yeah, you're getting the smile version of it.
Yeah. Kyle, it's not the first time you told me I was too positive. I was being too positive. That's scary.
It's just how it is. Some people are positive. They want to bring it to us. I appreciate that. I'm glad you guys made your trip safe. I'm excited about your new beginnings. I appreciate you recognizing that I was right. That's awesome for you.
I think you're up to 3 now. Because there was something I won't.
Well,
go into. There was something else you said live. You said face to face, and you were right about it. So.
Yeah, it's not your fault. Women aren't great at math. It's probably up like 5 or 6, but just it's too easy.
I'm just stunned that 2 women made it traverse the country and didn't get lost. That's great.
See, Steve's in my camp here.
You don't know me very well. Actually, how hard could it have been, right? 80 to 90, but you'd be surprised.
No, we've been a lot of road time, and Steve was a cop. I'm pretty confident. I watched a girl say that she got out of her car and said she was out of gas because the gas gauge said the range of the car was now 0, even though the engine was running. So she believed she was out of gas. So it's the number of things that you see when you keep around. I told my girls that the reason I make them drive their go-karts around is because I'm trying to forge better female drivers at a very early age. 5 and 7, they're learning how to use it.
So they're learning spatial relations, and you can't take all turns at maximum speed.
All turns cannot be done at maximum speed. You must turn the opposite way if you want to go backwards. If you want to change the nose of the vehicle when you're going the opposite direction. Yeah, all that fun stuff. They're going to be capable. And then I'm going to teach them how to shoot while they're driving.
But now, there you go. The DMV tester told me I drove very well.
And then never mind. I had a friend in high school who thought, I had a Jeep, and she thought that on the fuel gauge that F meant finished and E meant enough. Oh my God.
That sounds complicated. I'm not sure which one you'd want it to be then. Probably right in the middle, I guess.
She didn't graduate high school.
Probably for the best. That's when they used to have standards.
Oh my God.
Now she could be a valedictorian too.
She's probably working for the government right now, maybe in FBI leadership.
There's a very high probability. We've probably met her. Good times.
So thanks for taking our call, and thank you again for everything. And don't worry, I know you might have missed me in the chat, but I'll be there.
I noticed. I knew you were on the road. I can't keep track of everybody, but I can keep track of a couple people.
It's going to be 6:30 in the morning for me. I just want you to keep that in mind.
Well,
sacrificing sleep.
I expect you to come in full board. Don't half-ass it. If you're going to be there, be there all the way.
You're worth it, though.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
I was on Amaret at 5:30 in the morning.
That's going to be hard. Yeah, that's going to be tough.
It's always hard, but thanks. You're the one of the 4 dozen who does.
I try. I share.
It's the elite and the small, but mighty.
Yes, you know, we're the special forces of podcast.
We're the special forces of podcast. That's what I want to hear. Fantastic.
Where's my beret? That's my beret.
That's it. Well, you have to design your own beret. You let us know what it looks like, and we'll decide. We'll give you a thumbs up or thumbs down if you got to go back to the drawing board. All right, y'all. Steven, we'll be back doing this again in just a couple hours. I'm going to let Steve go. We're going to let you go. We're glad you're there safe. Thanks for checking in on the end of the voyage, and safe return trip home, Rose. I assume you're going home.
Thank you.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually. Fair enough.
So wait until the moving truck to get here, and then I'm going home.
All right.
It makes sense.
Safe travels.
Safe travels, y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
All right.
Steve.
God bless.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
And good night.
Bye.
Bye.
We have to, that's it. That's that. That's a good way to end things.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to know that people know that I'm right.
That's your takeaway. That's your takeaway.
My takeaway was that obviously it took a 2,500 meter or 2,500 mile drive to know, but yeah, I was right the whole time. That's the upside. It is true, though. Reciprocity is a big deal, and letting people bless you and take care of you. It's hard for guys like you and me. It's hard for Garrett. It's been kind of the humbling moment, I think, for all this stuff. So as we're kind of thinking back on it, that seems to be eminently true. Not a path we would have chosen for ourselves, I think.
No, none of us would have chosen this. None of us wanted it, but we're back to you can't win any of the fights that you don't engage in, right?
Yeah. And you get to lose some too, but probably worth losing. I don't know. Is it really a loss? Some of this stuff. I felt like you've been shackled for quite a while, and now you're unshackled, so watch out, politicians.
That's right. There'll be nothing but fear and terror and the wrath of real Steve Friend on a social media site that I know is not real, which makes me more powerful than I've ever been before.
That's exactly it. It's so silly. All right. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about something scandalous that the FBI got themselves involved in. You guys, I guarantee you haven't heard this story anywhere else when Steve sent it. We crowdsourced the information about what it is, and you're going to be shocked. But this is one of the ugliest versions of the playbook, TM. What else do we got? Anything else going on? Did you watch the Harris?
I did.
Interview?
Yeah, I did. I think
I'll get your takes on it tomorrow. I want to hear it fresh. We'll send it for that. So anyhow, join us tomorrow morning for Real Steve Friend on our Friendly Friday. Again, folks, thanks for all of you that have participated in our call-in. If you guys want to be part of it, you can subscribe. Do you have subscribers set up on X?
No, I'm not big
for the
time
best.
enough. It's probably
It's
time. Probably time to make it. I did lose 1,000 followers today, but maybe I'll just the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, we got rid of whoever wasn't great. All right, well, make sure you guys are following Steve. If you're not, you're wrong. That's true. And we'll do this again first thing in the morning. I don't even have like an outro for this college show. We just fade to black. But appreciate it, y'all. Thanks for calling in, and we'll talk soon. God bless all of you. See some of you very soon in the morning. Good night, Steve.
Good night.